Something about her young family's trip to Ikea isn't sitting right with Diandra Toyos. She pulls her daughter, who's 4, and her 2 infant sons closer to her. But it does nothing to faze the pair of men circling Toyos and her brood as they peruse the shop's wares. Soon, she begins to suspect that these strangers may have sinister intentions. To be precise, Toyos fears that they want to abduct her children. Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. Toyos' day at Ikea had started out like any other. She'd rounded up her 3 children and her own mom for the shopping trip. The Covina, California-based mother needed a new couch, so all 5 of them perused the furniture. Her children tried out the new potential pieces as well, jumping and sitting on the showroom sofas. But as Toyos and her family looked around, she happened to notice something. Wherever she and her brood went, 2 men seemed to follow. What proceeded to happen was something she'd heard about but never expected to experience herself. As a result, Toyos took to Facebook and, in a post that subsequently went viral, warned parents about the dangers of abduction. It's nigh on impossible for experts to precisely calculate the number of human trafficking victims because it's likely that many remain undetected. Nevertheless, researchers can make educated guesses, and the numbers are staggering. Estimates state that at least 20 million people have been trafficked and transformed into modern-day slaves, and the figure could be twice that amount. For Diandra Toyos, though, the backdrop for her scary encounter was a California Ikea store. She and her 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, loved to spend carefree, fun time together. Toyos described their favorite activities on the website for her wedding photography business. As Toyos put it, her world is pretty great, especially when she and her children had Taylor Swift dance parties together. Let's be honest, they're much better dancers than I am, the mom of 3 added. However, their trip to Ikea wouldn't leave the Toyoses dancing and singing. It all seemed to be normal at first. She and her mother loaded up the kids for the journey, something they often did. "We enjoy going, and it's always nice to get the kids out of the house," Toyos wrote on Facebook. In the back of her mind, though, Toyos had the story of a mother who'd claimed that she and her children had been followed by human traffickers while at Target. "I read things like that, and I always think, wow, that's so scary. I need to be careful," the photographer wrote. "But I always think, that could never happen to me. But you guys, it did." As Toyos told it, she'd trekked to Ikea specifically to look at couches. So she, her mother, and her 3 little ones headed to that section of the store. All had seemed normal at first. "My daughter was trying to convince us which couch we should get," Toyos wrote. "My older son was happily walking from couch to couch, flopping himself on each one." All the while, Toyos had her youngest son cradled in a sling around her. While he peacefully slept, however, something, or rather someone, caught the mom of 3's eye. "I noticed a well-dressed, middle-aged man circling the area, getting closer to me and the kids," she wrote. "Then he came right up to me and the boys." Something told Toyos to stand between the stranger and her older son. However, that apparently didn't stop the man from continuing to circle the area, staring at the kids. And it didn't seem like he was genuinely shopping either. He occasionally picked something up, pretended to look at it, but looked right over at us instead, Toyos recalled. The man's presence didn't just raise Toyos' alarm bells either. Her mother reportedly noticed as well and mentioned that we needed to keep an eye on him, the photographer wrote. As a result, she, her mom, and her brood moved on to a new area. But the well-dressed man then came after them. By this point, Toyos had noticed that a 20-something man had started to linger around her and her kids too. With that, she and her mother chose to stop shopping and instead took a seat in the hope that the men would shuffle off into another part of the store. In fact, Toyos, her mom, and the kids waited it out in an Ikea display room for half an hour. That was because the men had also decided to sit down on a showroom sofa that overlooked the family. Toyos believed their actions confirmed her suspicions. Again, when Toyos and her family stood up to move, so did the men. In fact, the 2 strangers walked to a couch that was even closer to the family. With that, Toyos' mother decided to do something. Staring back at the older man as she watched them, she made eye contact, very clearly letting them know that she saw them, Toyos wrote. Then Toyos, her kids, and her mother stood up, spoke with an Ikea employee, looped the store, visited the bathroom, and exited it in a different section. And their roundabout route apparently helped them to lose the 2 men, although Toyos still kept the kids right with her the whole time. Before Toyos and her family left the store, though, they informed Ikea's security team of the strange incident. And afterwards, the mom of 3 decided to write about the experience, apparently in the hope that it might help other parents who might find themselves in a similar situation. For starters, Toyos alleged that the men had no reason to be in Ikea. These men weren't shopping, she claimed. While they walked around the store, they weren't looking at things, not really. The older man would occasionally pick something up and act like he was looking at it, but he'd look right over the top of it at my kids. Toyos stated that the older man would also drop whatever he had when she and her kids moved on to a new part of the showroom. She warned parents to look out for people who weren't waiting for anyone. The men's interactions, or rather lack of them, also struck Toyos as odd. They didn't even talk to each other, she asserted. They didn't talk to anyone. They didn't smile casually at people. In fact, she said, this was one of the first indications that something was off with the older man. Early on, I looked at the older guy when he got close to us and smiled, which is something I do regularly when I'm out. I always make eye contact with people, Toyos wrote. He instantly looked away. That was odd to me. And another cause for concern, she added, was the men's clothing. Both of the men encircling Toyos and her family had on smart clothes, but the 2 strangers reportedly looked unique enough that they didn't seem associated. Finally, Toyos suggested that parents be aware of the people around them, as well as the environment in which they have their kids. She noted that both men seemed to linger near one of the store's exits. In addition, they'd chosen to visit an Ikea store, which meant they had a huge winding floor plan to play with. The area they were hanging around had an exit right by it, Toyos concluded. Ikea is a massive, confusing maze of a store, but they could have run out that exit with my child and handed them off to someone waiting outside and been gone before I could find them. Toyos felt as though she'd witnessed human traffickers on the prowl for victims. I'm reading more and more about these experiences, and it's terrifying, the photographer wrote. If not that, something else shady was obviously going on. Perhaps the best bit of advice that Toyos gave came at the end of her Facebook post. Following on from all of her own tips about spotting abductors, she reminded parents to trust their instincts. Something was off, Toyos wrote. We knew it in our gut. As parents, we need to be aware.